what a real pleasure it is to be here. I've always wanted to be at this festival, and now I am, kind of. If it was the real thing, this would be the Sunday morning after a lot of late nights up listening and then sort of playing in the various bars. So I've not been to this festival, but I've been to Spa in the United States a number of times, and I'm sure it's very much the same vibe. So it's very nice to be here. So thanks for inviting me. I'll give a little bit of background on me just to explain what I'm doing, because I'm mostly a 10-hole player, diatonic player, and about 25 years ago I developed a tuning to play the music that I was burning to play, which is American bluegrass and old-time fiddle tunes, and that's become a speciality. And the tuning I came up with was Major Cross, and Seidel in 2017 released a Major Cross version of their session still harmonica. So when I put my hand up to present at this festival, I thought, well, I'll just talk about Major Cross. And then Dave said, hey, look, we're overflowing with diatonic players. Could you talk about tremolo? And I'm very happy to do that. And just watching the videos there, and I know that Donald Black was on last night, and I've seen him and know how good he is. My tack's going to be a little different. So I'm going to talk for, I think I've got 75 minutes. I'm going to talk for about an hour. And then at the end, I'm going to have a concert. I'm going to move to a concert stage. But my talk is about how a diatonic player, a 10-hole player, approaches this instrument. And I'm sure there are a lot of you out there, who've seen these things, have seen the good players, and there's wonderful players, particularly in the Irish scene, but had a look at it and say, well, what do I do? Is it impossible? And the answer is no. So, over the course of my talk, I want to explain how a diatonic player, how a 10-hole player can take things which they already know and apply them to the tremolo. And, what kind of music you can expect, and, how to find your way around. So, let me introduce the tremolo briefly. Some of you are very familiar with it, but some of you are sort of like I was 12 years ago, and I'll get to later on to how I came across the tremolo. So here it is. This is a Seidel Skydiver tremolo. It's got actually 48 holes, 2 rows of 24. So the immediate thing from a diatonic player, well, forget it. I'm used to 10 holes. How can we deal with this? Okay, so it's worthwhile explaining what the deal with the tremolo is and how to sort of essentially cut down on the number of holes so you actually understand what's going on. So the first thing to understand about the tremolo is that it's a double reed instrument, so that you play 2 reeds at the same time. Okay. So that's the first reason why there's so many holes, because actually each time you play a note, let's see, I've got a C here, you're actually playing 2 notes. And I'm going to draw an analogy, because there's another very common instrument which does the same thing, which we'll also get to. So that's one of the reasons why there's so many holes, because you play 2 notes at once every time you play a note, or most of the time you do. The second reason that there are so many holes is that, unlike a diatonic, where each hole has a blow reed and a draw reed, with the tremolo, each of these little holes has either a blow reed or a draw reed, okay? Which immediately sort of changes the dynamics of things like bending. You can actually bend a tremolo. Okay, so there's 2 reasons why the tremolo has got so many holes. Okay, and as I said, we'll get onto sort of how they're tuned. Okay, so then as a diatonic player, that doesn't help me a whole lot. But what you do, and I'm going to demonstrate it in various ways, is you just plonk your mouth on it. You get it around the right way, so you still have to do this. So this is a diatonic instrument. It's in the key of C, like this C harmonica I've got here. And actually, as I'm going to show you, they're actually very similar. Okay, now that I've got it around the right way, you just plonk your mouth on it. That's the same as the 4 blow. That's the same as the 4 draw. So in the same sense that you put your mouth on a hole, blowing it, you do the same sort of the tremolo. Okay, so that's a brief thing on what it is. It's worthwhile going through how I encountered it as a 10-hole player. So I've been at it for, I don't know, about 42 years, like many of you. So back, I don't know, about 15 years ago, I started a harmonica teaching site in China, and with a Chinese partner. And as a result, I became, or I was invited, or actually I invited myself, kind of like on my, as I did here, to be a judge at the Asia Pacific Harmonica Festival. So I went in 2008 in Hangzhou. And a quick word about the Asia Pacific Harmonica Festival. I've got a sort of a notion about, what your festival is like, and I'm sure it's great. Maybe a couple of hundred people and sort of workshops. The Asia Pacific Harmonica Festival has 2,000 people. They have it every 2 years, and they move around cities. And the judges are all, they're performers. So the judges, we get a couple of concerts, a big gala concert where we each get 5 minutes. But the whole idea of the Asia Pacific Harmonica Festival is competitions. So I was a competition judge. That's what you do. You're a judge. So the first morning I got there in 2008, I sat down, with a bottle of water in my name, and watched the tremolo competition. And I almost fell off my seat. These guys were so good. They were so good. And I was judging them. Anyway, I did my best. So I'll get on to how the Asians play the tremolo, because it's not how I do it. But in the sample bag that the judges got was this, a tremolo, the first one I'd ever had. And on the back, you can read this. This is, hang on, I better read it too. Jiangsu East Musical Instrument Company, otherwise known as East Top. So East Top, back in 2008, were handing out harmonicas and promoting themselves. And I'm sure, as many of you know, East Top are now producing great harmonicas and really making some inroads. So this was an East Top tremolo. So P.T. Gazelle was at this festival. Many of you either know or have heard of P.T., wonderful, wonderful American diatonic jazz player. He got one. And I remember the next morning, P.T. came and said, "Hey, Tony," I won't try and do his accent. "Hey, Tony, I tried to play this thing. It's useless." But I tried it, and I got a... I managed to get a scale out, and I thought, hang on, this is like a 10-hole. And because I'm mostly a tune player, suddenly the idea of having this instrument for playing tunes came about. Okay, so this instrument was my introduction to the tremolo. That's 12 years ago. Okay, so I'll get on to how the Asians play it, because if you haven't seen them, they're phenomenal. But let's now talk a little bit about the double reed setup. And this, this one here from East Top is obviously an Asian tremolo. And this Seidel Skydav is also an Asian tremolo. So we'll talk about what that means. And actually, to introduce the tremolo, the best way to do it is with another multiple reed instrument. And so back a couple of years, or roughly about the same time I encountered the tremolo, I caught another free reed instrument disease, the Diatonic Accordion. And I caution you not to get onto these things, because they're highly addictive. I own 20 of them. This is a 1950s Hohner single row in the key of D. Now, the reason I've put it on, we're not going to go into an accordion seminar, but to show you, demonstrate how a double reed instrument works. Okay, so notice there's 10 buttons. This is actually laid out almost exactly like a 10-hole diatonic harmonica. Okay, it turns out button 3 is button 4. you may have seen that some people know this as Cajun accordions. You may be seeing these things on the top, the salt and pepper shake, and wonder what they are. Well, they're actually so that you can turn on and turn off various banks of reeds. Okay, and we're getting to why this is like a tremolo. Okay, so if I pull this one up here, I get a single reed. If I undo the straps and play a scale, that's how it sounds like, and it's got the same sort of weird thing that diatonics do, you know, 6 draw, 7 draw. Okay, now if we pull up the second thing, we get a second bank of reeds. Okay, and off we go. See, it sounds like an accordion. So adding that second reed turned this kind of weird, sounds a bit like a chromatic harmonica, to this. So the idea of, you know, double reed instruments, turns out there's 4 reeds in this, but you know, we won't get into that. Okay, so let's now get our a tremolo. And it turns out that if you pop your lip on the bottom, you can actually just play the top row. So, and it sounds like this. So it sounds a bit like a chromatic, and as you can heard, you can sort of bend it. But that's not really, it's an awkward way to play it. So, you know, 99% of the time, and more likely 100% of the time, I play it like it's supposed to be played, where I add the second reed. So if you listen to this, and then if we add the second reed, we get. Okay, so you get this full sound. The idea with the Asian style tremolos is that the reeds are tuned essentially in unison. So you get this sort of sound of just these 2 reeds doubling up. It's known as a dry tuning. However, there's another style of tremolo, sort of the European style, I guess. And here's an example here. So this is a Seidel Sailor. And here the same idea, you know, lots of holes, double reeds. This one's, hang on, not this one. Yeah, this one's in the key of D. The reeds are deliberately tuned further apart, so you get this more raucous. You can hear the sort of the reeds beating. Now, and obviously, well, why would you want an instrument like that? You don't notice it when you speed it up, and you get this raucous kind of noise which cuts through a pub session wonderfully. And so that they do this with some types of tremolos, the European types, and this Hohner accordion here, when I turned on the 2 reeds, it's also tuned in the same way. It's known as a wet tuning. Okay, so now let's, with that sort of somewhat lengthy introduction to the tremolo and how I came upon it, now let's have a look at what you do as a diatonic player. You know, say, okay, I want to play the tremolo. Okay, in the same way that I did. So, firstly, what I'm going to show you is not how you're actually supposed to do it. So the Asian players hold it like this, grab it at each end. One of the reasons they do that is they play multiple tremolos at once, like one in C and one in C sharp, which makes it like a chromatic. And they switch back between the 2 with immense skill and dexterity and accuracy and speed. I can't do it at all. Right. And most of the Irish tremolo players do the same. Donald Black does the same like that. But I'm a 10-hole diatonic player, and this seminar is for the other 10-hole diatonic players. So I'm going to propose that we do it differently. So we hold our 10 holes like this. So all we do is we take out the 10 hole and we bung in the tremolo and hold it like that. That's how I hold it. All right. So if anyone who really knows how to play tells you to do that, then do what they say. But if they don't, then this is what I do, and at least it means that I can do something I'm familiar with. Okay. Gets a bit awkward when I get up the top, and what I actually do is I shimmy along, which you'll see me do. Okay, so that's the hand position. The Tony Ayers lazy 10-hole diatonic hand position. Okay, so that's the starting point. Now, once you've got to that, so you're holding it, the first thing is, how do you then take what you know as a diatonic player and apply it to this instrument? And even before that, I guess one of the things is to get your head around why you would play it, because it has a very different sound. So you don't play tremolos expecting to sound like 10 holes, because they don't. If you can sort of think, as I did, well, it's an accordion, because it's an accordion. And that's sort of the sound that you're aiming for, then, the instrument, will make more sense, and hopefully be a little more appealing. Okay, so now let's have a look at how to apply the skills you have as a diatonic player, 10-hole diatonic player, to this. And we'll start with first position. Okay, and we'll start with the easy part of first position between holes 4 and 7. I've got a C diatonic, so just that little range there, which opens us up to tunes like Whiskey in the Jar. Okay, Whiskey in the Jar, as done by Metallica. So our first assignment as a 10-hole player, we say, okay, let's play Whiskey in the Jar. All right. So the first thing is where do you start? And it's sort of tremolos, because they have so many holes, they don't have these handy numbers on. And, starting at hole number 14 or whatever just doesn't make sense, because they're too small to count. So the way you get into it is you plonk your mouth on it about a third of the way along and blow. And hope that you've landed in the same spot. So you take a C tremolo, you take a C 10-hole, and just keep fiddling around till you've got hole number 4 or the equivalent of hole number 4 on the tremolo. So that's step 1. Then you play on the tremolo a scale like the one I just did on the 10-hole. So, So now we're on hole 6 draw. So we do the hole 6 draw, hole 7 draw, the thing that's been driving us nuts for as long as we've been playing. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. Figure out a major scale, and you'll sort of find, hopefully, as I did back in 2008 when I sort of wrestled with this strange instrument that I'd been given by Eastop. You'll struggle with it, but eventually you'll sort of get that scale. And actually, I find with the tremolo, if you speed up a little bit, it actually becomes easier for some weird reason. Okay, so then you've got this. You've got the. So once you can play that scale, then you have a map, which lets you into the tremolo and allows you to start. So then, all right, so if you can play the scale, if you can play Whiskey in the Jar in first position on your tremolo, on your diatonic, and if you can't, I highly recommend it. It's a great tune. Then you find out as you're starting, around the right way. So Whiskey in the Jar starts on hole number 5 blow. So we get our, there we go. And you just play the tremolo in the same way that you'd play your 10-hole. Okay. Now, one of the things is that the tremolo, at least in the middle part, is laid out just like the same way that a 10 hole is. So you can do the little tricks that you do on a 10 hole, like, so I'm a lip blocker, I'm not a tongue blocker. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll just open my mouth a little bit. So just to give these little bursts of chords, to fatten out the tune. You can do the exact same thing on the tremolo, because so you can give, with the tremolo, at least to my ear, if you hold the chords, it's a bit jarring, but you can just let these little blasts in, which sort of adds to the tune. Just another aside, and I'll throw these in fairly regularly. The Asian players. I mentioned firstly that they play, with 2, sometimes 3 tremolos, and they go back and forth. I haven't talked about what they play. They play competition pieces. These, classical pieces. William Tell Overture, they play it all the time. Rondo a la Turk, from the Mozart Piano Sonata, they play it all the time. I don't know how many times I've heard them play it, but they hammer it. There's none of this 10-hole stuff, missing notes or overblows or any of that. They hammer these tunes and play them really, really well. Okay. Now, the other thing which the Asian players do, and I know this because one of the Korean judges, and it's sort of a senior figure in the Korean harmonica scene, for some reason decided that I was his pupil. I was his tremolo pupil, and he would be my 10-hole pupil. I don't speak Korean. He doesn't speak English, but somehow we managed to. And let me say, there's a hell of a lot more to the tremolo than what I'm going to explain here, or what I can do. And one of the things the Asians do, it's a tongue block instrument for them, but they play melodies and accompany, and some of you will be familiar with that style in a 10-hole, but they do arpeggios, in terms of the accompaniment. It's a really complex instrument, in the hands of the good Asian players, and there's lots and lots of them. Okay, but in the West, generally what we do with the tremolos play traditional tunes. The Irish tunes. Irish players. There's a few of them, some very, very good ones. The Murphy brothers and others, and people like me. Sort of, I guess, an oddball really, because I'm Australian. I'm the only tremolo player I know in Australia, and as we're going to see later on, I play American old time music. But on the tremolo. Okay, so let's now get back to where we were. So with the my mobile, which is telling me how long I've got to talk for, has just told me that the battery's very low. That's one thing I didn't consider. Okay, so in fact, I might save a little bit of battery here. So with this little roadmap that I've given you, how to get around the first, sort of the equivalent of hole 4 to 7 on the diatonic, how to map that onto the tremolo. Now let's look at where the tremolo is different, okay? And it's different in that if we were to play Whiskey in the Jar on the 10 hole in the bottom octave, we would have to do a 2-hole bend and a 3-hole bend, so the major scale in the bottom octaves, it's got those 2 bends. So playing Whiskey in the Jar is a bit more of a mouthful in the bottom octave of a 10-hole. It's sort of. Okay, so, it's certainly can be done, and there's some people who are very, very good at it. But, there are those 2 bends to contend with. Now, this is where the tremolo is different. Because what the tremolo does is it takes the layout the whole 4-7 layout that we're familiar with, and then replicates it down at the bottom. Okay, so repeating that major scale I did earlier. If you go almost down the bottom, you've got the same scale laid out in almost the same way. All right. Similarly, if you go up the top, you've got the same scale again. Now, so which means that tunes like Whiskey in the Jar, you can play it down in the bottom octave. Okay, so what this means is the tremolo is great for playing tunes in different registers. So you can, whereas with the 10-hole, it's a little bit more complex because you've got to do bends down the bottom. In the top octave, we're talking first position. Whoops, it ran the wrong way again. So, there's that note missing in the major scale in the top octave, which you can get by bending, or some people can at least. Okay, so what the tremolo offers is the ability to play melodies in different registers without having to do any bends. Okay, now that's an attractive thing, and it opens up a lot of possibilities for melodies. Now, so continuing with this tour of tremolos, there's I talked about the Asian style ones and sort of the European style, and our focus is the Asian style, and I think a lot of the Irish players play Asian style tremolos as well. Okay, there's two types. There's the 24-hole, and this Side L Skydiver is a 24-hole, and then there's the 21-hole, and what I've got here is a Tombo Premium 21, and this is a pretty popular instrument. Turns out, so Tombo, the Japanese company, the company that make the Lioskers, it turns out that they're, as far as I can see, the world's leading tremolo harmonica company. They've got all sorts of models. So the Premium 21, they've actually got a couple of models ahead of that. So they're well known for tremolos. So the first question is, what's the difference between the 21-hole and the 24-hole, and which one should I get? It turns out that in the middle part of the instrument, they're identical. Okay, the 24-hole has got 3 complete octaves, and then it's got a note down the bottom, around the right way. So a fifth down at the bottom, and then at the top, there's 2 extra notes. There's a sort of the leading note for the scale, which you don't get on a diatonic, and you don't get on a 21-hole, and then this squeaky one, which is a third right at the top. So they're more or less the same, these 2 instruments. Okay, so now so we've looked at first position, but a lot of us are second position players, and I've sort of actually gotten into first position on the diatonic in recent years, and I like it a lot, for playing tunes. But there's a lot of us, 10-hole players are second position players. So approaching the tremolo from a second position perspective, okay, the way you do it is you think, okay, let's consider second position, but not down the bottom, not down there, but starting from hole 6 and the scale there. And a tune, because remember I said that tremolo is a tune instrument, a tune that you would play in second position is one like the Jolly Beggarman. In America it's called Redhead Boy. It's normally played in the key of A, so you use a D harmonica in second position. And it sounds like this on the 10-hole. Okay, so I can see there's a question here about the fanfare, which I'll get to. But let me just finish this point. So, what we do, if you can play Jolly Beggarman in second position, like I just did, then we'll get a D tremolo, and you approach it the same way. So firstly, you find the equivalent of the 6-hole blow, and this scale here. Find the equivalent on the tremolo. Okay. And then so basically you park yourself on the tremolo in a position which is familiar to you from the diatonic, and then off we go with Redhead Boy. Okay, so for those not familiar with Redhead Boy or Jolly Beggarman, Brendan Power on his 93 CD, I think, New Irish Harmonica, did a fantastic version of it on a diatonic. Okay, so that's applying second position, diatonic second position to the tremolo. Okay. It turns out that there's two more. There's also third position, and there's also fourth position. But before we get to them, let's. And there's a question here. Talk about someone's asked me about the Seidel fanfare tremolos. I've not played them. I actually some years back got Seidel to take the fanfare form and to make me octave harmonicas, which were really, really good. But so I've not played the fanfare tremolos. Okay. So now, so we've got. I want to relate third position and fourth position on the diatonic, but the tremolo. But let's have a little bit of a break from that, and let's say you've been inspired by what I've said, and you get onto the tremolo, and one of the things I've gotten into, as you're going to see at the end when I do a little concert, after years of swearing that I'd never play in a band that had me on guitar, I'm now playing in a band that has me on guitar, playing with the rack. Okay, so if you want to play tremolo using a rack, what do? What are the options? And this is where it gets kind of interesting. So here we'll start with a sort of a standard kind of, Bob Dylan type, back in the old days, rack here. This thing here, which is actually kind of falling apart, but you'll sort of get the spring and all that. Now, if you try and put the tremolo in, the 24-hole actually doesn't fit. So scratch that. If we take the 21-hole, it's sort of, you can sort of get it in, but okay, so that kind of works. I mean, these racks, they're much better ones these days. And one of the better ones, as those of you who play with racks would probably know, is the Hohner Flex Rack. And the Hohner Flex Rack, is a good piece of gear. It really is. Really, I think the first really well engineered rack. But, and this is no criticism of Hohner, it was designed for 10-hole, diatonic players, and I guess chromatics as well. Probably actually just for 10-hole players, because chromatic, unless you've got and there actually is a rack that does that. So when you take this rack and try and get one of these 24 holes, the Seidel one, lo and behold, it's the harmonica is bigger than the rack. Okay, so they say, okay, let's play 21 hole. So, okay, so we get the, here we are, here's my tombo. We put it in, so we pull it down the rack like this. The only thing is, because of the way that the tombo is laid out, it's got like slopey kind of cover plates you can sort of see. As soon as you push on it, it comes out. So, sadly, the flex rack we've got to retire. And as I said, that's no criticism of Hohner. It was designed for 10 holes and it works well. Okay, so side L. So I'm a side L guy, because I like their harmonicas. I'm a side L endorser. And there's a Tony Ayers side L model. Okay, so side L came out with a rack called the Gecko, and I've got essentially what I've got is one of the early prototypes here, but it's the same thing. Designed in the US by a guy called Pete Farmer, and then there's a collaboration with Side L. Side L added some bits. I won't go through how the rack works because that'll sort of eat up my time. But the key thing with the rack is that it's magnetic. Okay, so if we pop it on, it's got this rare earth magnet, and you just pop your harmonica on, there it stays, and you can do this, move it back and forth, very nice. Okay, great for 10 holes. So let's now, so great, we've got this rack, and obviously the width of the harmonica is not an issue. So let's take our tombo and put it on. So the tombo cover plates are some chrome thing or whatever, they're non-magnetic. So you can't play your tombos. You can't play the tombos with the Hohner rack. You can't play the tombos with the side L rack. What about the side Ls on the side L rack? Let's try that. So, there we go. However, there's always a however. Here we go. So side L harmonicas, the key feature is the stainless steel reeds. So if we listen to this. The first time I did that, I thought, my God, my harmonica's broken. A tremolo is not supposed to sound like that. As soon as you take it off, fixed. Okay, so what magnets do is they change the pitch. They pull reeds flat, stainless steel reeds flat, not brass reeds, stainless steel reeds. Okay, with a normal side L harmonica, it's not an issue because it's far away. It's lifted up from the magnet by the cover plates. There's no issues whatsoever. But with a tremolo, it is. But, turns out, I've got a PhD in engineering, telecoms engineering from the University of Wollongong. I play harmonica mostly these days, but I'm an engineer. So here's my solution. This is because the idea is to take the tremolo and lift it up just a couple of millimeters away from the magnet. And if I can do that, maybe it will work. So this is a poor old cover plate of some X harmonica that I've twisted and bent around, and I've stuck a couple of pieces of wood on it to hold the harmonica straight. All right. So put this on. There it is. So it's sitting on the magnet like that. So a bit untidy, but no one can see it because it's got a harmonica sitting on top. And right, see if the problem's fixed. Right, so you can play harmonica in a rack. I mean, unless you want to use one of these old Bob Dylan things. But the side L Gecko and the Hohner Flex rack, they're just so much better. So much better. If you're a serious player, you have to use them. Okay, and if you play tremolo, now the magnet allows you to do this, slide the harmonica, and that's pretty important on the tremolo because if you put it on and you're not far enough this way or whatever, you can adjust on the fly, and that's really, really nice. Okay, so that's how you can get a tremolo to work, a side L tremolo, to work on a Seidel gecko rag. And I'll be using it later on. Okay, so with that little engineering aside, let's now have a sort of continue this tour, and we're sort of getting nearer to the end. This little tour of taking existing 10-hole skills and applying them to the tremolo. So what I'm proposing is that you make a direct swap of what you know on the tremolo and you apply it to the 10-hole. Okay, so third position. So I mean, I love third position for blues, but also for minor tunes, because so I've got a G harmonica here, so that thing sort of where, which is an A minor, and then that's on the draw, saying the 4 draw, the 4 blow, that's a G. So there's a whole raft of tunes which are sort of A minor, G. In the American sort of old-timey or bluegrass tradition, sometimes they're called modal tunes. You know, the Irish tradition has heaps of tunes like this. So anyone who plays Irish tunes on a 10-hole will be very familiar with third position. Okay. So one of the third position tunes I play, it's an American tune, it's Cold Frosty Morning. It's like this. Okay, so that's Cold Frosty Morning. Right? So how do you do it on the tremolo? So what I propose is we get a G tremolo, and I've got a whole stack of them here. So here's my G tremolo, and I do exactly what I did on my G diatonic. Okay, so with the third position, our sort of home note, I guess, is the 4-hole draw. So I've got to find the equivalent on this harmonica. So hang on, it says hole 4. So I've got myself oriented in the same position. Then I go. It's just like third position because the layout of the tremolo is the same as the layout as a 10-hole. So if I try Cold Frosty Morning, okay, so, and there's a whole stack of tunes like that, and, you know, and the Irish players will know about okay, so there's there's a few questions here. Let's have a look at them. Okay, so from Paul Brown to everyone, if you have steel reeds and a magnet, doesn't it mess with the tuning? Yes, it does, if they're close enough to the magnet. And with a regular 10-hole, they're not, so it's not an issue. With a tremolo, yes, as I showed you, and so my solution of just putting something on the magnet to lift the tremolo up again. Okay, some Sam, rare earth metals, are the same. Thank you, Sam. How do I feel about the Hohner Echo Celeste tremolo? I've not played it, so I can't be much help. From what I know of the Hohner tremolos, they're a traditional European instrument, so they would almost certainly have a wetter tuning, like the accordion that I played here. Incidentally, this accordion here, and in particular this one, I'll just if I just reach over to my shelf. The good thing about these seminars running from Zoom is that you all this stuff. Okay, so this is a Hohner accordion. The Hohner call it the Vienna model, but everyone else in the accordion, or the English accordion world, or melodeon world, because that's what English call them, they call this a poker work. This is the Hohner equivalent of the marine band harmonica. So Hohner have a similar place in the accordion world as they do in the harmonica. And I didn't really know this until I started playing the accordion. And it turns out I've got a whole stack of accordions, including this 1930s single row in D with this old-fashioned, and this is a fantastic instrument, and it just blows the socks off any bar I've ever been in. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so do I play tongue splits octaves? Not on the tremolo. So I'm mostly a lip block player, and sort of from the tunes that I play, I'm a single note style player. And if we look at the players that I'm familiar with, sort of in the Irish tradition, someone like Joel Anderson, some of you may know, he's a fabulous tongue block player who wails these melodies and plays his accompaniment. I can't really do that. I mean, obviously I do the tongue splits on the 10 hole, but sort of mostly more when I'm playing blues style stuff, not so much when I'm playing tunes. The only thing I'll really do is that kind of thing. Okay, but I'm mostly a single note player, so what I try and do is sort of emulate the fiddle. Okay, so now someone's mentioned Richter Tuning. Turns out that the Seidel Sailor is tuned sort of as in Richter, and I think the Hohner ones are too, where you get the repeated note. My opinion, just my opinion, but I think this is the reason why at least some of the Irish tremolo players that I know of play the Asian style tremolo, and I think a lot of them play the Tombo Premium 21 that I had here, because you can repeat melodies in different registers without having to change position. So that's, to my mind, one of the real strengths of the tremolo. So it doesn't make sense to me to have an instrument that doesn't have that capability, and the Asian ones do. That's just my opinion. Okay, so we've gone through the various positions, and again, sort of go back right to the start of this talk. This is for people who play the 10 hole, are intrigued by the tremolo as I was 12 years ago, and thinking, where do I get started? So the whole gist of my talk has been to take positions that you're familiar with on the 10 hole and apply them directly to the tremolo, and that's what I did. One of the things I haven't so I'm making it sound easy, just pick up the tremolo. It's not quite as easy as that. And this is why. So, and this is, remember I said back in 2008 when P.T. Gazelle, one of the finest players I've met, came downstairs and said, Tony, I can't make any sense of this thing. The reason is, when you first start playing it, you plonk your hand and you go to play a note and it's not there. So you sort of have to have your mouth in the wrong place and in the right place. And let me see if I can explain why and what makes a tremolo awkward. Someone said you only need to retune a couple of reeds to get rid of the Richter tuning. Confession, that's what I did with my Seidel Sailor. So yeah, that's an easy fix for sure. Okay, so I've tried to make it sound easy to encourage you to get into it, but I might as well let you know what the pitfalls are. And I can sort of demonstrate it on a 10 hole. So when you play um, you know, the octave, the scale in the middle, sort of, it's nice. It's all blow, draw, blow, draw. But if you think about it, you know, you've got, you know, and I'll talk about scale degrees here. The 1, the 3 and the 5 are on the blow. The 2, the 4, the 6 and the 7 are on the draw. You know, the 7 notes make up the scale, and then you repeat the first note to finish it. Okay, which means that there's more draw notes in the scale than there are blow notes. So what you have to do with a harmonica is start spreading things out. So we're all familiar with a 10 hole, that when you get to hole 7 and start the octave again, you have to go over to hole 8 and then up to hole 9. So we're used to that sort of that zigzag kind of thing. Okay. Well, the same is true on the tremolo, except when you get to the top octave, it gets pretty awkward. So can you see how far I'm moving? So okay, whereas on a 10 hole, okay, so with the tremolo, when you get up to the top, it gets kind of awkward because you've got to do these big... However, you've already got 2 octaves down the bottom. For a lot of the tremolos, at least to my ear, up the top, especially this D, or this is a C, but the D's the same. It's pretty squeaky up the top. So actually, I tend to avoid it. Okay, so we've looked at first position, we've looked at second position, third position, fourth position. Okay, so fourth position, if we take our C diatonic, fourth position, a tune, the shy plate's a Canadian tune, it's the Wren. So we've got a C harmonica. Actually, I play an E minor. So I've got a G harmonica. Fourth position, E minor, your home note is the 6th draw. That one, okay. So then a tune like the Wren goes. Okay, so, I mean, it's a great position, fourth position, and I'm sure many of you are very familiar with it. Okay, so let's find it on the tremolo. It turns out I use this position a lot. So we've got to find the equivalent of the 6th draw. So, and I'm actually going to sort of find it low down. So. I've got a G. There we go. Okay, so now once I'm there, I do just what I did on this 10 hole, and I get this. So that's fourth position, and at least the way it lays out on the top octave of a 10 hole lays out very nice on the. Well, you do the exact same thing in the tremolo. I use that position a lot. One of the things with the tremolo is if you hold it the wrong way, the Tony Ayers way, the wrong way, then if I can just reach over to my shelf here. Oh, there we go. And get my trusty Audix Fireball 5. Then you can do this stuff, all right? And get the kind of sounds that you would get with a 10 high and all the techniques with a tremolo. If you hold it like this, no. You know, you're sort of in front of a mic stand, so it's a very different kind of sound. So all the hand cupping effects. One of the things with the tremolo, and this is, I mean, my take on it, and you know, this is, I mean, I'm a 10-hole player, so this is a 10-hole player's take on it. But it actually, to my mind, it actually sounds nice if you don't push it. So that tune I was playing just then, you know, the Wren, so the, you know, that if you push the reeds, which actually I'm about to, and this is what concert I'm going to do, I'm going to hammer the things. You get this very nice sort of, I don't know, it's sort of a floating kind of sound. So it's, you know, once you get your head around it, it's a sound, you know, which is appealing. Okay, so that brings me to the end of part A of, I guess, you know, what I'm doing today. So what I'm going to do now is, you know, once I've got my various bits and pieces together, I'm going to put the lights down for a couple of minutes, head off to what I'm going to call my my concert stage, and I'll do a sort of a 15-minute show for you. I'll play the tremolos mostly. I will also play a little bit of my major cross diatonics, but I'm going to be presenting, you know, the music that I've been playing mostly lately, American old-timey music. So give us a couple of minutes to set up. I'll see you on my concert stage, and those of you who've stuck around and asked questions, you know, thanks for being part of this, and you know, thanks again for having me in this festival. I've always wanted to, now I guess I have. Okay, so I'll just give me a couple of minutes to set to go to my concert stage. So I'm going to put the lights down here, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So we've got a couple of minutes then. Do
you want to mention the donation, Simon? And
yes, that's exactly what I want to mention. So, yeah, all the artists in this festival, no one's getting paid directly, but donations are welcome, and they will go straight to the artist. Every penny just straight to them. So I know it's been a really difficult time for a lot of musicians at the minute, with a lot of the work being cancelled, gigs, etc. So I'm sure that absolutely any contributions would be greatly received. So yeah, that would be great. Maybe we'll just have a look at what is on for the rest of the day, if you just bear with me. So, hang on a minute. So, Sunday. So, after this, at 12:50, we've got a video compilation of 20 years of National Harmonica League / Harmonica UK festivals, and that'll be focusing on the chromatic harmonica. And at 1:15, Matthias Heiss, technique and fluency on the chromatic harmonica and jazz improvisation. 3:30 to 4:45, Rachel Plass, I might have said it wrong, apologies if I have. So that's going to be improvisation, music creation with the harmonica, and different artistic directions. So I'm sure that'll be very, very good. And then finally at 5:45 to 7 p.m, Robert Bonfiglio. Again, I might have pronounced it wrong, and I'm sorry if I have. So that's advanced chromatic technique, and introduction of the chromatic to diatonic players as well. So there's a good day ahead. So where you can hear some sounds. I'm sure Tony won't be long now.
Simon, what's your experience with the tremolo? You've been playing it for how long?
Oh, quite a number of years. I've not really been counting. But yeah, a good number. So yeah, I play the tremolo. I play all sorts of traditional sort of music on the tremolo. So yeah, but it's been really great to hear Tony, and I think he's really explained things in a really nice, clear way for people who aren't familiar with the instrument, because it can be confusing. It's more confusing than it should be. So yeah, thank you, Tony, for really sort of explaining to people who might not be familiar with it.
The other thing Tony mentioned was, which I just tried and I agree with, is that it seems to be easier if you play faster. I don't know why that would be, but
well,
yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's a you have to just be slightly careful, because sometimes when you play faster, it's like, oh, it's easier, but that's because you're skimming over all the little mistakes, and the smudge notes. But yeah, I think just go for it. Get a tune in your head and just try and play it the way you would on a diatonic, but just do it on a tremolo, and you'll soon maybe learn to love the instrument.
Yeah, and the positions thing, that the modal positions, I was just trying some of that as Tony was, and it really did make a lot of sense to me. I like that. Thanks, Tony. That was very, very interesting. Good little pathways through the jungle, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Cool. So, okay, I think we're nearly.
Sorry, Simon, can you ask Tony to unmute?
Yeah, Tony, can you just unmute yourself when you're ready? Because we can't hear you.
Sorry, there was an echo, so I muted him.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Hello. Right.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, where am I? So now there was a bit of a comment earlier. Someone said, had some regret that the Tony Ayers trio, who some of you may be familiar with, aren't playing today. And there was some talk of us getting together, but as often happens, we had a bit of a disagreement. But I'm delighted to welcome my son Hunter to the stage. If Hunter, you could take yourself and my lad's going to help out on the guitar. Okay, so this is a tour of sort of the tremolo styles that I've been working on, and also the music I've been playing for the last few years. American old-timey music. So this one's Walk Along John McKansas. Walk Along John to Kansas. So in recent years I've been playing American old time music. So you Walk Along John to Kansas, you can't get a more American name than that. This is in the key of A. We're going to play another one in the same style. What I should point out is that this music is dance music. That's what it was meant for and designed for and has traditionally been played as. So you get a tune and you just play it over and over and over and over. And then when it's the last time through, you call it as I did, so one more. This one's Little Billy Wilson. Come on! This is a harmonica festival, but I should say a little about these two guitars we've got. They're both based on the classic Martin D18, but they're both made in Australia. This one by Brian DeGrucci, who sadly passed on about 3 years ago, but not before he'd made 600 superb guitars, so I'm lucky enough to have one of them. And this one here is also a D18, but made by Joe Gallagher in Albury about 20 years ago, and Young Hunter's lucky enough to have it. Okay, so one of the things with the old-timey music, as I search for the right harmonica, is that often it just sits on one chord for a long, long while. So the high point of the tune is when it changes chord. So this is an example of that. This one's Julianne Johnson. This one's in D, so we'll switch the harmonicas. Let's see if we can move it along a little bit. One more. Julian Johnson. Okay. So now I'm going to go take this little thing off. I'm going to go back to my 10 holes and got 2 more tunes. So here I'm going to play my major cross side L session still. The Tony Ayers harmonica, so Tony Ayers might as well play it. So this one, this is a song by Norman Blake, very well known sort of bluegrass style songwriter. $15 is my game, 15 is my dog. Randall Collins is my name from State of Arkansas. We're rolling dice on the railroad line, get you too much change. Working on that section, yeah, sure to break your back. $15 is my game, 15 is my dog. Randall Collins is my name from State of Arkansas. Well, I'm hiding out by the water tank where the shade is cool, watching them strawbacks on me. I ain't nobody's fool. $15 is my game, 15 is my draw. Randall Collins is my name, State of Arkansas. Well, they're making up a train in the Memphis yard, the longest I ever saw. Riding down from Fairfax down the State of Arkansas. $15 is my game, 15 is my draw. Randall Collins is my name, State of Arkansas. A gambling song, I guess. Hey, look, it's nice to see some applause, at least from the people I can see. I mean, this is a strange way to perform, but it's nice, and these days it's what we've got, so it's what we do. I'm very lucky to have my lad Hunter helping me out. Okay, so this is our last tune. It's another old-timey one, and a tune it is. This is Chinkapin Hunting. Let's see if we can move this one along too. one, lad.
Yeah.
Applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah,
thanks,
that was
mate.
absolutely brilliant. Thank you. So,
Cool down for a little bit.
before you go,
Yeah.
maybe, sorry if you don't mind, we did have a question earlier about your tuning, your Tony Ayers tuning, major cross harp. Would you be able to just maybe tell us a little bit about
Absolutely.
it?
Let me just.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it is. Ooh. It's just like performing. It really is. And very nice to have my son with me. He's much better on guitar than I am. And it's only this morning I said, hey, look, do you want to join us? And he said, yeah, okay. So it's a much steadier performance on guitar. So round of applause from me for young Hunter. He's also a hell of a good button accordion player. And actually, that's something I might just throw in. Because I mean, it's sort of, it's party time now. So the idea with major cross is this. So about 25 years ago, it occurred to me that if I'd been playing blues, and I'd led blues bands and I loved it. And then I had kids, and those of you who are like me will know you can't run a band and raise youngsters. But then I went to a bluegrass festival and realised there was still a way that I could play with great players. And I loved the music because I'd known it before. Without having to have a band, you just go to festivals. And then it became apparent that there was a repertoire of tunes that you had to know as a pass key to get in. So my mission circa 1995 was to learn these tunes. And for some reason, I decided you couldn't play it in first position, so I tried second position. Then obviously, with second position, you sort of, away you go. You got that flat note, which rules out almost all of the tunes. Then I started playing with the country tuning, Charlie McCoy's tuning. And I was making some progress, but you need to be really, really good at the bends to be able to do that. And I mean, people like Charlie McCoy and others, they're so good that you don't notice that they are bending. But, I wasn't. I was floundering. And then, it's about 1997, I went to the National Folk Festival in Australia. And I watched the button accordion players. And for some reason, I had this epiphany that I could play melodies without having to bend notes because the button accordion players weren't. And I was familiar with the Lee Oscar Melody Maker tuning, and some of you may be too. And the idea with the Melody Maker is you play in second position, but the whole scale, second position scale, is tuned to a major scale. So I took that idea and I thought, well, why not apply that to the entire harmonica? So, have the two octaves, like the Lee Oscar Melody Maker, but also when you get to the two, and play in second position, which is why it's called major cross, because you're playing in cross position and you're playing a major scale. So the idea is, you play your number 2 draw, so we're in A here. So, okay. Now, if I take, a D harmonica, this is sort of, second position A, you play D harmonica, it would be that bend, that flat note, so great for blues but not for melodies, then flat note again. It's the whole idea of second position. If you then take the major cross, which actually changes 7 notes, and the first ones I made, I tuned them up myself. 2 draw, that's an A. Then 2 blow, it's a B. And that's also done with the Paddy Richter tuning, all right? But they're the similarity ends. Paddy Richter's a great tuning and achieves the same end, but for first position. This is for second position. So if we just blow draw, I'm on 6 blow, I've just played a major scale, I keep going. Okay, I'm on 9 blow, so I've just played 2 octaves. Then if I keep going, so the 10 blow is tuned down a semitone. So so it's just one of the notes in the major scale, rather than with a regular Richter, where you got, it's a fourth instead of a third. The other thing, and this is the big difference between the major cross and the melody maker, is you get the two draw, and you just keep going. You just continue down the major scale. Now it means that the two blow and two draw are a semitone apart, in the same way that the five blow and the five draw are on a regular Richter. That takes a bit of getting used to, but you can go. Try doing that. I mean, I'm sure there are people who can do that on a Richter, but I guess that none of them are in the room right now, so I can't. Okay, so one of the things is once you get this tuning, and where did I put them? Oh, there. So if I get my D1 and play something like Whiskey Before Breakfast, which is the bluegrass standard. Okay, so you can play these tunes. I remember when I first made mine, almost 25 years ago, suddenly I was amazed at how easy it is. And that's, so people, I'm telling you, I want to keep that in this room if we could, how easy it is to play these tunes with major cross. Because if you let that out, that's my secret. Because there are people out there who think that I'm good. Just don't play these things. So if we can just keep that, I would appreciate that. So let's have a look. I'm just got some questions. So this custom tuning advocate from this guy, draw out been doing Facebook. Carolyn major cross harps. Okay, so Carolyn tunes on the major cross harps, and I do too. So for example, hang on, get a G. I'm sort of rambling a bit here, so unplug me when you've had enough. So on this, a tune like Hewlett, okay, so that's Hewlett and a Carolyn tune on one of these major cross harmonicas. I'll have a lash on the tremolo. I might mess it up because I don't think I've played it. But just before it, just one of the points about major cross, and one of the reasons I like it so much for tunes, is that because you're not doing bends, every note has more or less the same character. Because unless you're extraordinarily skilled at bending, and someone like P.T. Gazelle comes to mind, and I'm just not in that league for bending, the bent notes sound different, which is fine for blues. But if you're playing a melody, you don't want this note, a Carolyn melody, you don't want this note that just appears and sounds awkward because it's a bend. So with major cross, you don't have that. You just play the notes. And if you want a note to have a different sound, then you do that. So if I attempt. So the question was, how does a Carolyn sound on the tremolo? Well, the shorter answer is, I don't think I've ever tried it, but I'll give it a go. I don't know if that sounds any good or not.
Great.
One of the things there. So I'm playing it in first position. So this is a C. Was it? No, it's a G tremolo. Now, if I was playing it in first position, and this is actually an argument for the tremolo as well as for major cross, if I was playing it on a 10-hole, it'd be in the B part. I'd be going. So that 3 draw, the big bend, you can hear it's got, I mean, at least when I do it, I can't get it to sound like the other notes. So that's, that's a, okay, so now another question. For these kind of tunes, is there an
Tony,
advantage? Yeah?
We are going to have to wrap up soon.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
sorry, I just, but yeah, maybe you could just answer that question quickly, and then I think we'll have to wrap up. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
It's about time I had a beer. So the final question then Paddy Richter, advantage, major crossover, first position for Paddy Richter. Paddy Richter's a great tuning. The advantage of major cross is you can play a lot of tunes in 2 complete registers, a bottom octave and a top octave. With Paddy Richter, more often than not, that's not the case. Apart from that, Paddy Richter's a fantastic tuning, and just listen to Brendan Powell and you'll see what I mean. Okay, it sounds like I'm